Right here.
Coach, Frank Cusimano, St. Louis, used to cover you in Lexington. It's hard to believe that you've never coached head-to-head against Jim Cruz in all your years. Your impressions of Coach Cruz and the job he does at St. Louis?
Well, I think it's quite evident. I'm not. Anytime you watch it, it's like when I was watching Larry Brown's teams this year. You weren't quite sure whether his team executed better on offense or defense, and that's indicative of St. Louis and Jim's teams. You know, they executed both ends of the floor in a terrific fashion. Obviously, they've got seniors, and seniors execute very well, and they're very impressive.
The row right behind that.
Coach, much has been made about Billy Donovan being here and almost coaching in Orlando. When he was about to make that NBA jump, did he consult you at all for advice?
Yeah, we talked. My opinion at the time was for him to stay put. And he was ready to make a move. And it was an interesting story about him. When he did left, it a ride back. But you know, I think Billy made the right move for the right reasons. That doesn't mean that down the road someday he may change his mind, but at that time he made the move for the right reasons. And that's you always have to go with your heart.
Other questions? Back row on our left.
Hi, Rick. Kent Taylor from Wave TV in Louisville. How important was it for you guys to win a game when you were down late, to have guys have to make shots down the stretch, as much as you've been blowing out people this season?
I thought it was really, really important because I knew we weren't going to blow out Manhattan. I knew that game, regardless of what you thought. I knew the way that game was going to be played. I knew it would be a tight, hard-fought ball game. What was impressive to me is that Russ, Montrez were having nightmarish games. And down the stretch with the game on the line, they both made great plays. And that tells you something about their abilities. Russ made a great three to tie it up, made a great pass, another great pass to Montrez inside, free throws. And, you know, to block out the fact that you're having a bad game and to just make all the right plays speaks volumes of two veteran basketball players who've been through it. So I thought it was crucial for us to move on because this is not last year's team. Last year's team, although we were in a tight, hard-fought game with Davidson as well, this is a totally different type of team that needed a close, hard-fought game.
Other questions, please. Up front.
Coach Chris Hayes, Orlando Sentinel. Obviously, a lot of emotions involved in last night's game, given the particulars. How difficult is it for you guys to bounce back? I mean, not only for an NCAA tournament game, but then to bounce back from what was such an emotional game?
Well, I think that's the easy part. You know, we've been to 2 straight Final Fours, and we played 4 games in a Big East Tournament championship the year prior to this, three the last year, and now this year with the AAC. So we bounced back quickly. You know, we got in very, very late last night. Judging from what somebody told me with Steve Fisher, it could have been worse. It could have been New Mexico State having to fly back. So it's you heard about that, right?
Just heard about it.
And it was his idea to do that. So it was no, it's not difficult. You're on adrenaline right now. I mean, the coaches, we've had literally 2.5 to 3 hours sleep. We watched film and got up real early and watched more film, but we're on such adrenaline, we don't need 5-hour energy to stay up.
Other questions? Another one in the back, and then we'll come up here.
Rick, so much has been focused on your relationship with Russ and throughout his career and all that. How tough, though, is Russ Smith as a basketball player? For a guy of his stature who gets bumped on every screen, his thumb was bothering him last night, says his knee. I mean, he's not that big of a guy, and he takes a lot of hits and still kind of keeps on going and is out there every night for you.
How tough is it for him or me?
Just how tough is he?
How tough is he? You know, I was disappointed in him last night, no question about it, the way he was playing. But he showed me more last night in the way he responded in the waning minutes of the game than any other time in his career. Because nothing was going right. I was upset at him, and he just totally blocked his game out the way he was playing, made all the right plays. What Russ has to understand, and it's what makes him great, but it also makes him have some bad nights. And he found out in the last few minutes. Russ is most dangerous as a passer than he is a scorer, even though he's a great scorer, because everybody keys so much on him. They know they got to stop him, and he's going to draw 2 or 3 people. So what does that mean? People are going to be open. And that's where he's at his best, when he finds people, when he draws double teams.
Eric, and then we'll come over to Mike.
In the Big East, it seemed like every team you would play in the tournament, you could draw a frame of reference to somebody you saw during the season. I don't know if you can do that this year, but who is St. Louis like at all? Are you able to kind of explain to players it's similar to this?
I don't know. St. Louis would be like a tall version of Marquette. Extremely well coached, tough kids. It's not often that you get a great team that has 5 seniors, starting. And, when you look at Mercer right now, I think, they have 7 seniors in their lineup? Is that correct? That didn't surprise me. I mean, Warren Buffett probably saved a lot of money with that game, but, it's very difficult coaching young players. It's very easy coaching older players. It was very easy coaching my team last year. And it's a lot more difficult coaching this team than it was last year, even though we do have some veterans. But when you've got 5 and 7 seniors, it's they know what to do in situations. You don't have to call timeouts. They know what to do. They know how to play the situation. They've been there before. Fundamentally, they're as sound as can be.
I think there's one follow-up there, Eric, or?
Oh, yeah. I'll try and phrase this delicately. It's very rare to see 2 coaches of your guys' experience, of you and Jim Cruz, who haven't really coached against each other. Having watched St. Louis on tape, what do you take from what he's been able to do there?
Well,
And,
Jim
yeah.
coached at Evansville, right, before this? Army. So, likelihood of us playing, we're not great, so that's not a big surprise. I think what you're alluding to is the fact that we're both old. I said it last year, because you watched him. I've already seen 6 games of his. Last year, I was just blown away with how good a coach Greg Marshall was when I watched tape. And I never coached against him. I was blown away with how good Dana Altman was at Oregon. I never coached against him. Blown away with coach at Colorado State, Larry Eustachy, who was at Southern Miss before that. And the more you go against guys that you haven't seen before, you realize what a big country this is with great coaches. And Jim Cruz is as good as it gets when you watch his team play on film. Defensively, they don't let you run your things, which is what you try to do as a defensive team. Offensively, they get high percentage shots with great duck-ins, pick and rolls, slips. They step their big men out to shoot it. In one-day preparation, Jim Cruz-type teams are nightmares to go against. And we have a little advantage in this game because he'll try to break down Russ Smith, and we won't have a clue how to play him.
Our far left, third row. Mike?
Yeah, Coach. Billy said today that there's still some aspects of the NBA coaching that are alluring to him. I'm just wondering, he's been a college coach for almost 20 years now. When you've been a college coach for that long, what is the pull of the NBA, and do you think he'll ever coach in the NBA?
Billy, do I think Billy will ever coach in the NBA? He's like a son to me, but I couldn't answer that question. I think that, last time around, his dad, what shocked me the most, his dad and his wife were all for him going to the Magic, which I thought was shocking to me. I was the only one against it, I think, in his inner circle. It's always been not a dream of Billy's, but a dream of mine to see the court named Billy Donovan Court. I thought it would happen a while ago, to see his name on the court. And I still very much want to see that someday because of what he's meant to Gator basketball. That being said, if he wants to try it someday, that'd be great. He'll do just like Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens will be a great Celtic coach, but he'll be a great pro coach. Billy will be, if he wanted to do that, will be a terrific pro coach because he's always thinking of plays, defenses, and, he'd be great at it. Me personally, I just want what's best for him and his family. And, Florida is very lucky to have somebody like that for a long period of time. How many years has it been?
18.
That's amazing. I really feel like I just left him in Providence like 7, 8 years ago, and it's amazing.
He grew up a Knicks fan. Do you think the Knicks job would be alluring to him?
He would never coach the Knicks. I know him. He grew up in New York, but he's not a New Yorker.
The row right behind that, there's a question.
Rick, apologize if this has been asked, but you mentioned that Harrell's one of the most improved players you've had in a year's growth. What are some of the specifics where he has improved?
Well, as I said, like Gorky Zhang, he came in a great athlete, a great runner and dunker, with very few skills and fundamentals. Wasn't a very good passer, wasn't a very good ball handler, didn't shoot the ball real well. And he's really improved in all those areas. He's a very good passer, a very smart basketball player, picks up scouting reports quickly, makes good plays. He didn't have a good game last night, but like Russ, made big plays in the final minutes of the game. And it's like I tell him, he was getting beaten up in the low post by Manhattan's players. And when I tell him, son, you got pro aspirations, you better be able to guard those Manhattan Jaspers. And he got the message late in the game.
Third row on the aisle, and then the front row we have one.
Coach, you talked about last night, you've said it many times, about if Luke's open, he's got to keep shooting no matter what. He gets the big steal, hits the big shots last night. Is there something, you saw it last year in the Final Four, is there something about the big moment or the big game that his personality, he kind of embraces that, or he's well-suited for it?
Well, I actually had to jump Luke in the last time out hard. I said, Luke, if you have an open shot, stop ball faking and shoot the damn ball. I said, I don't want to see you open one time without you shooting, because he passed up about 5 shots. We're struggling with guys shooting it that shouldn't shoot it, and our best guy is not taking the open shot. The steal was a big-time play. The shot was a big-time play. But when we pass the basketball, pass it, we are a terrific team. The last 2 games, we've been just a good team because we only had 10 assists. Prior to that, we were getting 19, 20, 21 assists, and we look like a great basketball team. And when you get all those assists, you shoot a higher percentage, you get your press on more, and your style of play takes place.
Front row.
Rick, I'm sure you saw last night that St. Louis was face guarding T.J. Warren pretty much the whole game with a bunch of different guys. Do you anticipate that at all with Russ? And what other things have teams tried to do to Russ to try to slow him down? And has any of it ever worked?
I would imagine they'll try everything to stop Russ. But like I just said earlier, Russ makes us a better team when he passes more. And, we've got a lot of playmakers. Who would you say the MVP of the game was last night by your naked eye? If you had to pick one guy for us. Yeah. Harold Hancock. Well, Hancock would be, I think, the obvious answer because of the way I thought it was Chris Jones by far. Now, he may have been 2 for 11, but he was 6 for 6 from the line, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, no turnovers, playing 33 minutes of the game. Where I thought Van Treese the other night, was the MVP. It's what the whole, when you break down the tape, the value of a player is to the team. I thought that Russ and Montrez had very poor games last night, but played like All-Americans when the game was on the line, and that's what you would expect. But Chris Jones played a terrific game. So we have a lot of guys who can make plays. And taking away Russ, I don't think hurts us too much because you've got Chris, you've got Luke, you've got Montrez. You got guys that can make plays.
Front row.
Coach, 2 things. First of all, you talk about Luke getting him to shoot the ball and not the ball fake. I remember at UCF this year, you were yelling at him the same thing. He's a shooter, but does that surprise you that he...
He likes, believe it or not, he drives very well, he passes very well, he likes to ball fake. But against Manhattan, they leave the middle open, they close out hard on the middle, and then if you don't take the quick shot, they close out well. So you got to take what's given to you by certain teams. And last night, it was necessary for him to do it, whether he, what happens with Luke, he misses a few, and says, let me go to something else. And he couldn't do that in last night's game.
And then the other thing, obviously Mercer pulls the upset today. It's good for the game, but you've been on the other end of that, Moorhead, a couple years ago. Talk about being on the other end of that upset.
Well, nobody handles it as well as Coach K does. There's nobody who has more dignity and class in the game than him. He handles it the best of any of us. That being said, it's torture. It gnaws at you. I remember last year, 2 years ago, and I always tell this story. It made me write that book, One Day Contract. We have great media in Louisville, but I don't read them, and I don't watch them, but they're great people. They really are. I love being with them all the time. I don't read them or watch them for a different reason. But 3 years ago, we lost to Moorhead State, and Moorhead State played great, and we had a terrific season. Our best player broke his ankle. We were up 4 with 8 to go. Bad break, we lose the game. So my son, who listens to, my oldest son, listens to the Fellowship of the Miserable, and he said to me one day at lunch, "Boy, Dad, they're all over you. They say you've lost your touch and you're too old." I said, "Too old? We had a terrific season." He said, "Yeah, but you lost in the first round." I said, "Kid broke his ankle." And he said, "Dad, they don't understand that. This is call-in shows." I said, "Well, why are you listening to that? Why would a son of mine ever do that? And why would you tell me?" He said, "I just thought you should know." And that's when I started writing the book, One Day Contract. It's the way I'm going to coach from this point on because of our media today and our social media today. So, with that in mind, you have to understand that that's the way it is today. You can lose today. You got a veteran team like Mercer or St. Louis or Manhattan. That's why I knew the game was going to be so tough. They're a senior team. They've been together. It was their moment finally. I think if they would have been faced against another team who didn't know them as well as we knew them, vice versa, they would have gone to a Sweet 16. So and that's why I was a little disappointed for one of my players. But today, you get these Mercers and the Manhattan colleges and the Ionas who have all those seniors. They can beat you on a given night. Duke is a very young basketball team, so it wasn't a surprise. But that's the way it is today. That's what makes March Madness the greatest month in sports. It's even much better. People don't want to believe it. Back in the old days with UCLA and when North Carolina all had their seniors, yes, it was great to see all those guys like Patrick Ewing get better each year and all, but it's even better today because they can have as many guys in ESPN jackets that they want. They can't pick it. Nobody. And they can be as bright as Vitale and Billis and all of it. They can't pick it. Because it's just impossible. The teams are so good, so balanced, and it's so much fun to see. It really is so much fun to see. I could easily see Mercer going to a Final Four this year, the way they executed today. And that's my assistant coach, Marvin Menzie, took into overtime. My other assistant, Herb Sendek, played in overtime last night. It's just so much fun, not for my assistant to lose, but to watch those guys and what they're doing with their programs. March Madness is just absolutely incredible.
We have time for 2 more in the front row, I think, here and over here. We'll start right here on the aisle, center aisle.
Rick, Tim Wilkin from the Albany Times Union. The last year,
There's no horse racing in this town either.
that's what I'm going to ask you about. Last year during the NCAA tournament, you also had a horse on the Derby Trail. Do you have one on the Derby Trail this year? And if not, how much will you miss it?
Oh, I won't miss it because I'll be there. I've been very lucky in that business. I've had 3 Derby horses and 3 Breeders' Cup horses, and I'm only down $1 million. So it's a fun sport to be involved in. I root for it. I have friends that'll have horses, and I root for it. So no, I don't have one right now. I've scaled way back in the horse industry right now. I'm just watching my friends own horses. But I do have Megatrez, a 2-year-old with Nick Zito, going to be a very good horse.
Final question on our left, front row.
Forgot, I have Lieutenant Dale. I'm sorry I didn't mention that as a horse coming up too. Great 2-year-old with Nick Zito.
Rick, kind of touching on the March Madness question, Russ just told us that his bracket is a total mess, and I'm curious to know if you helped him make his picks this year or not.
I try to spend as little time with that maniac as possible. I would lose my mind if I spend enough time with him. He is with his texts late at night, his videos late at night, what he watches. On my 60th birthday, I get a thing at 1 o'clock in the morning. He knows that I drink Grey Goose. Not, I used to. Actually, I don't drink it anymore, but I used to drink Grey Goose. And he texts me a huge bottle, thinking of you on your birthday. I'm not going to ever even try something like this, but I'm thinking of you. Then I get videos of samurais being stabbed 100 times, and it's 1:30 in the morning. I don't know why I leave my phone on, because you have children, you leave it on, and this is what I get from this. So I spend as little time with him as I possibly can, so I can keep my sanity.
Thank you, Coach,
With
very
that,
much.
we'll adjourn.
We'll adjourn.